Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
What is it?
It's a one-year membership in the Jelly of the Month Club.
Oh, God.
Clark, that's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year.
Find out what a lifetime supply of jelly and the second half of life have in common. Coming right up.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money. The WorryFree Retirement, with offices in Louisville and Bowling Green. Your host, 5-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
According to AARP, it is estimated that between now and the year 2030, 10,000 baby boomers will reach retirement age each and every day. Let me repeat that. Over the next 11 years, they're estimating that 10,000 baby boomers, I'm in that camp, will reach the age of normal retirement each and every day. Now, unfortunately, as we shall see, these same baby boomers, who we're going to assume have worked hard at saving money all their life into these retirement accounts, will surprisingly have no written assessment on how best to first know where they stand financially, and more importantly, know for sure how long the money will last in retirement. Now, how do I know that so many baby boomers have no written assessment of their money and their retirement? Because I meet tons of them each and every day. Welcome, folks, to the WorryFree Retirement. I am that man in the sweater vest, retirement specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And today we're going to take on a deeper dive into the third part of our series on how to assess your retirement. But before we do that, let's quickly look at the 3 halves of life graphic that we have. 2 weeks ago, we discussed what the first half of life would look like and how to properly assess where you are and how you're doing financially. Now, the first half of life roughly is between the ages of 25 and 55. The first half is where you simply try to do the best you can, raise your kids, maybe try to educate them, try not to take on too much bad debt, and begin to position yourself to save more money. Last week, we talked about the stage that I'm currently in called halftime. Now, generally, this is between the ages of roughly 55 and 70, and this is the time of life where I like to say you start attending more funerals than you do weddings. Halftime is that point in life where you're starting to truly get your financial house in order. You're trying to determine how much money you're going to be able to spend in retirement, when you can retire. Maybe thinking about when to take Social Security and all of the stages that go into halftime. Now today, we're going to explore what I feel to be the most misunderstood phase of them all, particularly when it comes to the advice being pitched to savers from all the corners of the financial world out there. This phrase of all the money in the world is coming your way. Eddie likes to call it the Jelly of the Month Club Award. So we're positioning money. We're trying to provide lifetime income. It's kind of like that Jelly of the Month Club. It's kind of like what we want in the second half is the gift that keeps on giving. Now, this should be the time in the second half of life, unbeknownst to the financial world who thinks you'll need more and more money, where actually you should start relaxing more. Maybe you need a plan in place to protect your money for the next generation that's coming behind you. Maybe you're looking to give more money to grandkids rather than kids. Heck, I can understand that. I know what they're talking about when they're talking about grandkids. Although I'm still at halftime, I now enjoy my first grandchild, Scout. In fact, Scout just recently turned a year old, and as of the date of this recording on May 7th, 2019, we got another one in the hopper getting ready to come out for our second grandchild. But it sure is interesting. I've noticed this. As Scout has morphed into this toddler, as she plays with Stella, and as we have more and more fun with grandchildren, I'm just excited about the second grandchild as I am the first. And here's why I think this is, and you second halfers, you're going to understand this. As we watch our grandchildren grow up, we realize that the second half of life is kind of where we're going to have to call it quits, and we begin to take stock of the money. We begin to think about this idea of, hey, maybe having a lifetime income or a financial Jelly of the Month Club award doesn't sound so bad after all. Because really think about it. The second half of life, we shouldn't be worried about money. We shouldn't be out here risking it or trying to figure out the latest stock or paying all these fees or not having a game plan in place to deal with our taxes. The second half of life is where the financial world really gets nervous. You know why? Because they know you're getting ready to take your money from them. One of the most important financial tools provided to half-timers and second halfers is this idea of a retirement calculator. Now, if you Google, just try that for a matter of fact after the show, Google retirement planning calculators, and you'll see that these things are about as worthless as throwing a dart at a dartboard. And when we come back, we're going to fire a warning shot over the bow to watch out for the three things out there that the financial world is game planning for to keep your money and to hold on to it. Good stuff. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back.
Are you missing out on thousands of dollars in Social Security benefits? Find out by attending a free Social Security workshop presented by nationally recognized Social Security expert Heather Schreiber. Tuesday, June 11th in Louisville and Wednesday, June 12th in Bowling Green. Learn frequent common mistakes people make with their Social Security and how to avoid them, regardless of whether you're retired or retiring soon. Register now, as seating is limited. To claim your free seat, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Years ago, I had trouble finding a process that, in my view, accurately reflected the needs of savers as they approach what I call the second half of life. And unfortunately, we still have that problem today. Years ago, I had to spend literally in the six figures to come up with software designed to not only show savers where they are, that's called the assessment, but then also to show them how they're going to use and enjoy and protect this money through the changing years of their lives. But you know what? The financial world doesn't think that way. The financial world kind of thinks that when you retire, you throw your money in products and it's all kind of done. In fact, folks, there's three things you have to watch for. If you're in the second half of life, or really for halftime for that matter, most people are nervous about what to do with their 401k plans, and I get it. Again, let's repeat the statistic. With 10,000 people every day reaching retirement age and trillions, I'm not talking billions, trillions of dollars in these 401k plans, is it any wonder that everybody wants a piece of that money? Now, there's three ways they're marketing to you for that money. Number one, and we're going to cover this in just a second, articles on the internet. Number two, they're also giving you websites, what I call retirement calculators. And number three, the infamous dinner seminars. So let's review things first with the Worry-Free Retirement process. We use a 5-step process, and we're at the second step of our process today, called the assessment. And more specifically, for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the three halves of life, but today we've been talking about what I call the second half of life. Again, if you're just now joining us, this is the age, and if you'll notice this graphic, the blue behind there represents your money. Folks, if you do this right, you're not going to need more money in retirement. Now, granted, we don't want to run out of money. We'll talk about the Jelly of the Month Club here in a minute, but we don't want to run out of money. But the fact remains, barring some sort of catastrophic health issue, you're going to spend less and less money. But that's not what the financial world has to say about this. In fact, this is really interesting. This is an article I Googled. I'm not getting on the article, but you can tell this is written by someone from Wall Street. How do I know this? Look at the title. Your 70s, that's the second half of life, is not the time to wind down your retirement savings. Now, why would they write an article like this? It even says, for some, this is the beginning of a new phase of retirement savings. Folks, when you're in your 70s, you aren't saving any more money. That's not the point. We want to spend and enjoy it. Why would someone write this article? For that very reason. Folks, most people are paid fees on your money. Just to use round numbers, let's say you have $500,000 in an IRA or 401k, and let's say Wally World out there is charging 1.5%. Well, they're making $7,500 a year on your money every year, whether you make money or not. Well, of course, they don't want you to spend it. That's how they make money. So these articles, you got to be careful. While there's some good meat in there, they're generally not written for savers, and they don't have the worry-free retirement process in mind. What's the second problem? The second problem are something I call retirement calculators. Now, these online retirement calculators are free, and as we're getting ready to walk through one, actually, it's very well done. You got to ask yourself, why would a company spend thousands and thousands of dollars for free calculators? Well, number one, you got to be careful because once you start inserting data into these calculators, a lot of times they capture your information. I was wondering the other day, I think I looked for a driver. I play a lot of golf. Went to a website, was peeking at a driver, got off the website, later on was on some other website. Guess what pops up on my screen? The latest driver I should be buying. Folks, I basically got my information out there and they're following me around. So they're going to spend this kind of money for a 5-minute calculator. You got to understand this calculator is nothing you can bank on, as we're going to see. This calculator is trying to entice you to give them information so they can then market to you. So let's take a look at this one. Basically, it's a great calculator as far as the looks. You pick what you want to do. In this case, I'm married, so I select it here. You hit next. And this is really cool stuff. It says, how old are you? We're talking about second halfers, so I'm imagining I'm age 70, so I click 70. And this does happen. A lot of people say, people are still working at 70. I got one client who's 90 years old and still humping it. Man, this guy's still going. So yes, people can still work. But in this case, let's say I'm tired of working. I want to retire next year. Great. Click on 71. Let's say I'm a widower. I don't have a spouse or dependent, so I put none. That's great. Keep moving forward. Oh, this is cool. Louisville, Kentucky. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know what that means. I don't know why I should even give them that as a representative going to show up at my door, but that's cool. I can see Louisville, Kentucky. Next. Oh, and I want to have a comfortable retirement. Now, personally, I'm into images and graphics. I probably would have used something else. That flame looks like it's getting out of control. Looks like it might spread throughout the house. I probably would have used something different, but nevertheless, I click comfortable. And we've already pre-inserted information in here, so we're going to look at the next thing. Shazam! There we go. There's my retirement, folks. In 5 minutes, I figured out how much I need. Oh, by the way, since inflation's running rampant, we had to put in 3% inflation, and it sounds like these people are going to get me 6% guaranteed. Folks, 6% guaranteed, even if an annuity is not really what's offered. You've got to assume assumptions much less than this. This doesn't take into account taxation, doesn't take into account fees, doesn't take into account what happens to Social Security, doesn't take into account Roth conversions, annuities, investments, fee. All of these things, folks, none of this takes into account. So what do you use this for? Really, it's absolutely useless other than to tell you right now what they estimate based on today's factors. So those are the two things that concern me, the internet, articles, and retirement calculators. The third one is what I like to call the infamous dinner seminar. Now, folks, first of all, there is nothing wrong with people hosting dinner seminars. We used to host them years ago. There's some great advisors hosting these, but let's think about what you're doing. Why in the world are you, let's say you're 55 years of age or older, all of a sudden getting countless dinner seminar invitations in the mail? You didn't get them when you were 30 or 40. That's because you didn't have any money. Folks, the financial world knows that many of you, you're in that $10,000 per day. You're getting ready to retire. If you retire, you've got trillions of dollars in these 401k plans. You may have several $100,000, and as they like to say, there's gold and then there are hills. There's lots of money to be had, and the financial world knows this. This is why complete strangers are inviting you to dinner and treating you to dinner. So what are you going to do with this? Well, first of all, if you go to a dinner seminar, which is fine by me, you've got to make sure that you get a written assessment of your situation. The second thing you better do is before you hand over your money, get a written game plan. Now, many of these folks, and I've seen this because you've come in and told me this, many of these folks will not give you anything until you hand over your money. That is not only foolish, that is dangerous because many of you are going to put money into annuities or other products, and once you put them in there, it's very difficult to get them back out. So here's what I should suggest. Regardless of whether you've been on the internet, received a dinner seminar invitation, maybe you're just out talking and shopping and looking at advisors, keep in mind that the Worry-Free Retirement does not act like that at all. The Worry-Free Retirement is a 5-step process where we're going to move at your pace. And we are not going to the next step until we have thoroughly assessed your situation, created a written game plan, and make sure what we're recommending is comfortable for you. So take advantage of meeting with us. Meet with me in person. All you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started, and then we can meet with you to help you immediately. Well, what does 70 and a half have to do with the Jelly of the Month Club and your second half of life? It has a lot to do with it. I'll be right back. I'm going to get the whiteboard out. Some good stuff coming up. Imagine you or a loved one faces the prospects of going into a nursing home. The cost to you and your family? Enormous. Learn how to protect your assets from nursing homes during our next free live webinar with attorney and Medicaid planning expert Tom Kraus. Tuesday, June 4th at 12 noon. Also, Mr. Kraus will be appearing on the WorryFree Retirement TV show to discuss the same topic on June 30th. To register for the live webinar and for complete TV show listings, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. We've been kind of making light of the dinner seminars, and again, years ago I used to do those. As we said, there's nothing really wrong with the dinner seminars, but here's what I've decided to do in my practice, folks. After 35 years in the financial trenches, I've decided to take an educational approach to our practice. You wouldn't believe, I'm serious about this, my wife doesn't know, so don't tell her, you wouldn't believe the amount of money and time we spend dedicated to educating savers. In fact, this morning as we record this show, it's May 7th, 2019, I've already recorded a radio show. We'll spend probably 2.5 hours recording this TV show for over 7 TV stations throughout Kentucky. At 12 noon, we'll do a live webinar, and then we take all this information and we put it on podcasts. We let you see the videos. Somebody told me the other day, said, Tony, you're just transparent, man. You just throw it out there. And I said, well, that's the whole point. We want people to understand what we do, and we want to build trust and confidence so when you retire or when you get an inheritance or when you get laid off and you need to move your 401k, hopefully you'll think of us, and we've already built kind of a relationship of trust and confidence that we know what the heck we're doing. Now, this is one of our most popular segments, and we put this out every week on an email blast. We call it our whiteboard segment, and today we're talking about the second half of life and this magical age that the government came up with, 70 and a half. Now, why did they come up with 70 and a half? Nobody knows. But we know that that's the age that the government wants their fair share. What do I mean by that? If you have an IRA, 401k, thrift savings account, 457, it doesn't matter. Those are all called qualified plans, and those are qualified for certain pre-tax deductions, meaning the government is going to make you take money out at 70 and a half so they can get their taxes. So let's take an average person we might meet, and let's just say this person is age 70 and a half. Maybe they have some after-tax money in the bank of $150,000. Okay, just pulling stuff out of the air here. And they've got a IRA, maybe it's a 401k, they've rolled over to us or whatever, but it's got about $500,000. Now, this is just ballpark, but basically what the government says is that first year, because people ask this, they'll say, well, how much is my RMD? $40,000, $50,000? It's really not that bad. It's generally the first year, roughly about 3.5% of that amount. So you say, well, now what do I do? Well, let's say it's roughly $18,000. By the way, each year that goes up. You're going to have to take out more and more. And if you miss one of these distributions, there's a 50% tax penalty. And you say, how come it's going up, Tony? What's the big deal? Folks, the government wants their money. This was not meant to defer just all your life. They want you to take out more and more so you'll pay more and more taxes. Now, with the Jelly of the Month Club concept, what we say is, we call this mailbox money. The reason we like to put some of your money in a mailbox money account, basically we're talking about a fixed indexed annuity with an income rider, is because we want to pigeonhole that RMD. So in other words, we program this so when you turn 70 and a half, guess what? We're going to send you that $18,000 a year for the rest of your life. And with our split IRA concept, it allows us to be very flexible so we don't have all the money in the annuity, but we have the mailbox money, the Jelly of the Month Club, that lasts from now until the time the cows call you home. So folks, this really works well. You might say, well, Tony, what if I don't need that money? Where do I pay the taxes from? You pay the taxes from here. You pay that with after-tax money, so this allows us to have the full $18,000 to work with. This is some good stuff here, folks. Now, by the way, you cannot convert an RMD to a Roth conversion. That won't apply. You'd have to take out more money. But what could you do? I like the idea of gifting this money. I was in visiting with an elderly lady the other day. She's writing checks left and right to her kids and grandkids, and she is so excited about doing this. She had received an inheritance, and I'm helping her even set up some things with limited liability companies and other tax planning strategies so we can shelter more and more of her money from taxes. Folks, we know how to do this. And it's not just me. I have a team of professionals, service professionals I call them. In fact, we have 9 full-time employees to 2 fiduciaries. Myself and Heather Hughes are the 2 fiduciaries. You say, that seems like a lot of service professionals. Why do you need that many people? Because we provide a lot of services, and all the services we provide, the tax planning, the minimum distribution planning, Social Security analysis, there's no charge whatsoever. So you got to ask yourself, if you're retiring soon, maybe you're getting ready to roll that 401k plan over. Remember, all of us in the industry, many of us make the same commissions on a lot of these products. And you got to ask yourself, okay, if I move this money over, what am I getting in return? And is this person going to be there with me for the long haul? Because here's the point. Retirement is not a one-shot deal. When you move money over in retirement planning, it's just beginning. So you want to hitch your wagon to a team of professionals that understands all the nuances with retirement planning and is going to be there for the long haul. And we would like to be that organization. Why don't you consider contacting us? Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. Well, does the Bible have anything to say about assessing your situation and possibly this concept of not having balance in your life? In the next segment, I'm going to show you our 3-prong approach to money and how the concept of man, money, and God fits right in with the Worry-Free Retirement. You stay tuned. I'm going to get me a cup of coffee. I'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a buyout? Has the company you work for recently moved or been acquired or closed its doors forever? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k to safer territory. Why continue to risk your hard-earned money when you don't have to? Let's meet in person today to discuss your retirement options. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your no-obligation appointment to meet with me in person. Do it today.
Are you missing out on thousands of dollars in Social Security benefits? Find out by attending a free Social Security workshop presented by nationally recognized Social Security expert Heather Schreiber. Tuesday, June 11th in Louisville and Wednesday, June 12th in Bowling Green. Learn frequent common mistakes people make with their Social Security and how to avoid them, regardless of whether you're retired or retiring soon. Register now, as seating is limited. To claim your free seat, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Today we've been talking about the idea of being able to properly assess where you are in retirement and the 3 halves of life that require one to look at their situation in a different light. Now, in my view, this whole notion of a proper assessment in retirement strikes a balance between holding onto our money for the future and spending it now for the present. In the book of James, God speaks to this difficulty in striking this balance between our relationship to Him and our reaction to the world. James begins at the basics of life, reminding us that we enter this half of life, in other words, the second half, as we grow older, and begin with the fact that we are just a vapor. We appeareth for a little while, and then all of a sudden, we vanish. Now, not being humbled by this fact and instead thinking that this life on earth is simply about the money and our enjoyment of it, leads us into some key verses found in James chapter 1, verse 8, and James chapter 4, verse 8, where the Bible refers to this idea of a man not being stable in his views and therefore being what the Bible refers to as double-minded. Now, what does this mean? Well, in my humble opinion, it means that a man or woman is not able to separate the things of God from the things of the world, and in this way gets confused, kind of a split personality, if you will, and not clear thinking. I recently met a fellow who had recently lost his parents and was very upset that the amount of money he received for his share of the inheritance was less than his brother's. He shared with me how life wasn't fair and that God was in some way cursing him or his parents for the way they felt about him and his brother. Oh, by the way, on a lighter note, when I was first training in this business back in the 80s, I was riding around with a guy and he was hilarious. We were talking about estate planning and how to make things fair for children. He said, "Tony, you know what my grandmother used to say to me and my brother? She would set out the cake. We got 2 pieces, right? She would give one the knife and the other got to choose the first piece." Pretty good logic there. Anyway, so what we're talking about here is the idea of realizing that when we get an inheritance like this gentleman, that money can create an imbalance and create this financial schizophrenia that can really warp us. Up until the age of 31, I was a double-minded fella. I couldn't keep a balance between the relationship with God and money, and it almost overtook me. Now, with that said, and in creating with this whole concept of keeping a balance, I created something called the three-prong approach to money. And I think this will be very helpful to you. First of all, we got to remember the balance is this. First of all, there's man. Now, I wrote a book about man. I've got a degree in psychology. The book I wrote, you can get it on Amazon, is called The Three Personalities of Money. And what I discovered and what I think truly provides balance is that we all think differently. We all have different wants and needs, and not everybody thinks a lot. So as an advisor, I'm trying to get in people's heads, and I'm trying to make sure I'm working with savers. I know how savers think, and thus my assessment of them is very, very accurate. The second thing we've got to coordinate and balance is this notion of money. Guess what? I wrote another simple book on money called Don't Follow the Herd. As humans, what we tend to do is we watch where everybody else is going. We assume they know what they're doing, so we follow them. And then we find out we're drinking downstream from the rest of the herd and wonder why the water tastes so funny. Folks, you have to have a balance between understanding money and the financial world that's out there trying to get it. That's called the money portion of life. And finally, the third prong to our approach with the Worry-Free Retirement is God. And yes, I had to write a book for that one, and that was called The Worry-Free Retirement. And if you read that book, you'll notice that a lot of that book is helping people try to figure out what it is they want and this balance between trusting God and working hard for our money. So this is our three-prong approach, folks. And you may be sitting there saying, I don't have anybody that thinks this way, Tony. It seems like all they want to do is talk about my money. They don't want to talk about the enjoyment of the money, the balance of my life, and my spiritual relationship with God. Well, we do. This is how we work, and if this sounds like something that resonates with what you're looking for, let's talk. It's easy to do, and best of all, there is no cost to meet with me in person. The first thing you gotta do is just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. All you're going to do is click on that Let's Get Started button. Now, once there, your information is confidentially sent to our offices. We will be in contact with you to arrange either a phone call with me, or if it merits, we will meet in person at our Bowling Green or Louisville, Kentucky office. By the way, over there at WLEX TV, Lexington, Kentucky, my own stomping ground as a kid, we're getting more and more feedback from there. In fact, somebody came in the other day for a review of an assessment. They said, Tony, we're not retired yet. I'm too young. But I can tell you what, this is the first time anybody's laid out anything like this. As they said, we will be back. Speaking of being back, we'll be back next week for another episode of the Worry-Free Retirement, where I'm going to be moving on to the third step of our process, committing to a written game plan. Some really good stuff coming up next week. But you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.
Thank you for watching the Worry-Free Retirement with Tony Walker. If you need a safe and simple game plan for your retirement, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and schedule a free, no-obligation meeting with Tony.